What is up, you guys? This is All Day Any Day One on the PS4, and I'm going to be giving you another Assassin's Creed Odyssey video. And with this video, I'm going to be kind of giving you like a little build video on several different assassin builds, but this is mainly just an assassin legendary set overview. So I'm just going to be looking at all the legendary sets that is available for the assassins, which is only 5 different legendary sets, 3 of them being obtainable in-game, and 2 of them being obtainable in the Helix store. So we're going to go ahead and go take a look right at it. So first things first is we're going to go ahead and take a look at the weapons, abilities, and mastery points first, so you guys know what I have put on before we look at the gear. So I'm going to be using the Dionysos' tiers and just epic daggers and an epic bow. With these daggers, it's going to give you 2% chance to deal 25% of assassin damage on melee hit, and then adrenaline per crit and assassin damage. You can only get this through the Helix store or by getting lucky with the Oikos vendor or jar, or you can wait for the Orichalcum vendor to pop out with these Dionysos' tiers. Now, if you don't have these, then I would recommend going with the Edge of Time if you have the DLC. If you have the DLC, this is going to be a great option to use, or you can use another set of daggers, purple daggers, that's going to give you this pretty much these same stats: assassin damage, crit damage, damage daggers, and then you're going to end up throwing on some different stats or engraves like the 100% damage on you'll get an increase in 100% damage, but you will be down to 25% health, or armor penetration, or the 25% cooldown duration, or the 25% extra damage to elites and bosses. Or the other option is to use the Falx of Olympus, which also gives assassin damage, 30% adrenaline per crit, and 100% damage, but your health is capped to 25%. Now for my epic dagger, I am using assassin damage, crit damage, 35%, 21% damage with daggers, and then I threw on the 25% assassin damage, but you do lose 15% melee resistance. You get that engraved from the Blade of Ephemeral, and like I said earlier with the other dagger, the same thing. This is only from the Helix store or the Oikos vendor. Now if you don't have it, you can always use the other alternatives that I had already mentioned. Now for the epic bow, you're going to go with assassin damage, all damage, crit chance, and then I threw in armor penetration because armor penetration is very important to have, especially if you don't have like a solid poison build or anything. Now for the abilities, before I move on to gear, you're going to go with 3-on-3 on Hunter ability, 1/3 on Overpower Bow Strikes, and 3/3 on Ghost Arrows of Artemis, so that way you can shoot through the walls to hit the enemies. You won't necessarily one-shot most enemies, but you know, you'll be able to kill some of them, mainly the smaller enemy types. And then for Archer Master, you want this mainly not necessarily because of the hunter damage and the headshot damage. It does help with the Ghost Arrows of Artemis, but you want this because of the fact that you get your adrenaline increases, but you gain adrenaline whenever you're out of combat. And then, wait, does it say that if an adrenaline? Yeah. So if it's partially, it's my bad. Yeah, if it's partially drained, you will gain adrenaline. So it's not going to be if you have absolutely none, but if you have a little bit of adrenaline, that's what it is. And then I have Weapons Master, which is going to be very, very important with this build because you do need that warrior damage, and then that crit chance is also going to help you a lot with that 10%. And then the combo finishers, you get an increase in damage for the combo finishers for light and heavy attacks, 1 point in overpower attacks. Battleguard of Ares is going to be 3/3, 3/3 on second wind, so you can take off the elemental effects if you get hit by it. And then Shield Breaker is very useful for both just doing damage as well as taking enemy shields off of them, especially if you knock them down. Like for example, if you use Hero Strike to knock them down on the floor, just go ahead and use Shield Breaker, and then sometimes you'll hit a crit. I feel like you hit more crits when they're on the ground than normally, but you'll do a lot of damage to the enemy when they're on the ground for some reason. And then you're gonna have 3/3 on Shadow Assassin for that increase in assassination damage and knockout damages if you want to get the knockouts by 40%. And then you also get an increase in crit damage by 50%, and your assassinations also give you 1 extra adrenaline segment bonus whenever you do assassinate an enemy. And then Venomous Attacks is 3/3, 3/3 on Poison Mastery, and 3/3 on Rush Assassination, 3/3 on Hero Strike, 3 out of 3 on Slow Time, 3 out of 3 on Stealth Master, 3 out of 3 on Shadow of Nyx, and then I put 1 point, or you can only put 1 point in Death Veil. The reason why I use Death Veil is because of the fact that it does make the enemies disappear, and this is actually better than I had anticipated it to be, because it's really nice to make it to where the enemies won't even know that their ally is dead, because there's no body to witness it. Now for the ability points, I have no points into the Hunter Mastery, and I only have points into the health regen. So damage dealt restored his health, 8 out of 20. And then for the Assassin Mastery, I have 8 out of 20 on Poison Weakening, 8 out of 20 on Assassin damage, 13 out of 20 on damage of daggers, 8 out of 20 on crit chance while full health, 12 out of 20 on crit damage while full health, 12 out of 20 with damage while full health. And then 8 out of 20 on adrenaline per crit, 8 out of 20 on adrenaline per assassination kill, 8 out of 20 on damage on elites and bosses, 12 out of 20 on chance to deal 25% of your assassin damage on melee hit, and that is it. Now the reason why I'm at 13 out of 20 is on the damage of daggers is because you want to have as much damage with your main weapon. So it doesn't necessarily have to be with daggers, but the daggers is going to be the best option, having some of the best engraves and the best perks and whatnot. Plus it's really quick, so having damage with daggers, or having daggers in general, plus the chance to deal with 25% of your assassin damage on melee hit is going to be really great, because if you use something like the heavy axe or heavy maul or spear, then it's going to be really hard to actually build that chance up. Not necessarily build it up, but really have a good chance with it, because it is a low percentage, so hitting more often is going to be the better route. Now also, you don't necessarily have to go with the damage restored as health, because for some reason the health doesn't restore as much as it should, even though it says that it's doing a certain amount. You could end up putting those 8 points into assassin damage or warrior damage, whichever one you feel like. I just like to put it into the health just in case if I may need to clutch it, and especially with Battleguard of Ares, you are invulnerable, so you don't need to really waste using Second Wind. Sometimes I use it though. And now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the not the abilities, but the gear. So the first set you're going to be looking at is going to be called the Pilgrim Set, and the Pilgrim Set's not a bad set, but I wouldn't put it on the top. I wouldn't say it's number 1 or even number 2 of the best assassin legendary sets. This legendary set is also really easy to obtain, so I think that's also one of the reasons why it's probably not one of the best ones. But you get, for the Pilgrim Set bonus, 100% adrenaline consumed by Shadow of Nyx ability, which means your Shadow of Nyx no longer consumes any adrenaline, which is great. Like, that is honestly one of the best engraves to have in general, but it's just the stats itself is not that great in my opinion. The only thing that this set has going for it is the fact that its set bonus is really great, and then the adrenaline gain is also amazing. So for the stats, you have assassin damage, 21% damage with daggers, 35% crit damage is what I threw on the engrave slot. And then the legendary arms, I have assassin damage, 21% adrenaline per hit, and 7% crit chance. The torso, I have assassin damage, 35% adrenaline on assassination kill, 35% crit damage. Legendary waist, assassin damage, 35% adrenaline on assassination kill. And then I threw on the Nemean Lion set, engrave, which is 5% crit chance and 25% crit damage while full health. Now if you don't have that, you can always use 14% crit chance on hit or while full health if you have that unlocked, or the 60% crit chance at full health if you have that unlocked. If you don't have neither of those, the 7% crit chance and the 35% crit chance is both great. And then for which unfortunately I don't have neither of the full health ones. Now for the boots, you get 19% assassin damage and then 28% movement speed while crouching. And then I threw on the 10% intoxicated damage and weakening effect. Now, if you have the 14% crit chance while full health, I would recommend putting that on, or the 60% crit damage at full health. Whichever one you have, I would recommend using, because it's a lot better to have the higher crit chance, so that way you can deal more damage. But if you have neither of those, the 10% intoxicated damage and weakening effect is going to still be really good to use. Now, the way I would rate this, or actually before I even rate it, I'm going to show you the stats first. So you have 322% assassin damage, and then 67.2% damage with daggers, which is really nice. 40% crit chance while full health, and 270% crit damage while full health. 29% added space, 205% added space. So it's a pretty big jump for the crit chance in general from its base to full health, but the crit damage to the crit damage with full health is not that big of a jump at all. Generally, you would want to be like at 300, 400% crit damage at full health, or 500 if you can get there. And then for the utility, like I said, where this build really shines is the adrenaline gain. So you're going to get 21% adrenaline per hit, 54% adrenaline per crit, and then 100% adrenaline on assassination kill, meaning you're getting double the amount of adrenaline on assassination kill, which is really nice, which makes this build even better when it comes to using Shadow of Nyx. But then again, you don't necessarily need the adrenaline if you're going to be using Shadow of Nyx a lot, because it requires no adrenaline. So having that adrenaline or assassination kill on adrenaline would be more useful on a build that can do a lot of damage. Now, the way I would rate this specific build is I'd probably put it on as number 4 out of the top 5. I would say it's number 4. I wouldn't put this as the first top 3 at all. But it doesn't mean it's not a viable build or viable set. It's just the stats on it is not that great in my opinion. And honestly, it took me a little bit longer to clear a fort than it did with the other builds. But, it is what it is. And I'm also going to be showing you guys some gameplay of each and every individual legendary sets as well. So this video might be a little bit longer than you anticipated it to be. So up next is going to be the pirate set, and the pirate set is very, very, very powerful. In my opinion, it is hands down the best legendary set. And I know I was going to rate it after, but, you know, I'm just going to let you guys know that right now. And it's also obtainable in-game as well. So you don't need to you're not required to buy it in the Helix store or anything like that. So with the pirate set, you get assassin damage and 14% crit chance while full health, which is great. And then 35% crit damage is what I threw on for the engrave. Assassin damage and 35% crit damage on the gloves, and then 7% crit chance is what I threw on the engrave. Again, that's perfect. And then for the pirate armor, you have assassin damage, 35% adrenaline on assassination kill, and I threw on 35% crit damage. Pirate waistband, there's 19% assassin damage, 7% crit chance, and then I threw on 5% crit chance and 25% crit damage at full health. Now if you don't have that, you can always throw on 35% crit damage, which is easier to get, or you can get the 14% crit chance at full health, or the 60% crit damage at full health, but you do have to earn those through relics. And then for the pirate treads, or the boots, or the legs, whatever you want to call them, you're going to have assassin damage, 14% crit chance while full health, and then I threw on 40% adrenaline consumed by Shadow of Nyx's ability. And if you can throw on that 60% crit damage at full health, you will be hitting like a truck. I mean, you're already going to be hitting extremely hard, but the extra 60% will go long ways. And then for the pirate set, it gives you 50% damage with assassin abilities, which is why I think this particular set is great, because of the fact that you're not having to rely on having a high amount of crit damage. Having that 50% extra damage to your assassin abilities, which is your rush assassination and hero strike, is going to be extremely useful. And if you have critical assassination, which I didn't put on, if you have a critical assassination, that's going to be even better, because critical assassination doesn't count just an assassin ability or just assassination, but it does count as an ability. Assassinating enemies does not count as an ability, so don't think that you're getting extra 50% damage to just regular assassinations. But with this set though, you're gonna have a high enough crit chance and crit damage to still one-shot enemies anyways. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the stats. We have 322% assassin damage, 46.2% damage with daggers, which is less than what the Pilgrim set was by a little over 20%. But your crit chance, crit damage makes up for that. You're at 75% crit chance while full health, 305% crit damage while full health, which isn't as high as like the epic gear, but this is still really high for a legendary gear set. And then for your utility, you're at 0% adrenaline per hit, 54% adrenaline per crit, and 65% adrenaline on assassination kill. So that 54% adrenaline on crit is going to be really useful because of the fact that you do have a high amount of crit chance. So the higher your crit chance is, and your adrenaline per crit, meaning you get a lot more adrenaline. 65% adrenaline on assassination kill is great because it's still over 50%, which is you're getting more than 1.5 times more adrenaline rather than 2 times more. But yeah, like I said, I don't know why I was going to say highly recommend, but I would say this set is definitely in the top 2. In my opinion, it's number 1, but it is pretty debatable on being number 1 or number 2 with some people. Up next is going to be the Viper set, and you're going to notice a little bit differences between this and the other builds is because I changed the weapons. So the weapons, we're going to go ahead and look over these before we go over the gear. So I have on the epic daggers, assassin damage, 21% damage with daggers, and 28% poison damage. And then I threw on the 30% elemental damage, but you do lose 30% elemental resistances. And then there's another engrave that's very similar to this. You get 30% elemental damage, but instead of losing 30% elemental resistance, you lose 30% elemental, what's it called? Elemental increase or build-up. That's what it is, elemental build-up. But, you know, it is what it is. Both of those engraves, though, they come from a Helix bot only legendary weapon. And if you don't have the Helix to get those, or if you just don't want to get it, or if you just don't have it in general, your next best bet is to get the 15% increase in poison damage and 15% increase in poison or build up. If you already have that and you have it on a different weapon, then that's fine. You're going to then want to just go with either 30% armor penetration, or you do want to go with that 30% armor penetration, or you can go with the 25% increased damage against elites and bosses, or the 25% increase in or reduction, cooldown reduction. Now for the sword, I'm using 100% damage with health capped at 25%, which you get from the Fox of Olympus. And then I have assassin damage, 21% adrenaline per hit, and 28% poison damage. And then for the Fangs Bow, which is the legendary bow, which you can earn in-game, it has assassin damage, 28% poison damage, basic arrows become poison arrows, and then I threw the 15% poison damage and build-up. I would honestly just replace that poison damage and build-up with the armor penetration, but you know, I just wanted to see the differences, and I mean, there is a pretty big difference with the armor penetration, so I would highly recommend just putting the armor penetration on instead. Now, if you don't have an epic bow, then this would be the best option. But if you do have an epic bow, the stats you want to go for is assassin damage, poison damage, and then crit chance, 7% crit chance, and then throw in that 30% armor penetration or 15% poison damage and build up. Now for the gear, the snake viper set you want to call it, you're going to have assassin damage, 7 seconds intoxicated duration, and then I threw on the 35% crit damage. Assassin damage, 35% elemental buildup, and 7% crit chance on the engrave slot on the arms. And then on the torso, there's assassin damage, 28% poison damage, and I threw on 35% crit damage. The legendary waist, it has 18% or 19% assassin damage, 28% poison damage, and then I threw on the 5% crit chance and 25% crit damage while full health. Now, if you don't have the Nemean Lion set, just like the others, you can throw on 7% crit chance or the 14% crit chance at full health, 35% crit damage, or the 60% crit damage at full health. I would highly recommend throwing on the crit chance instead, though, because without crit chance, you're not going to be able to crit in general. And then for the legendary legs, you have assassin damage and 7 seconds intoxicated duration, and then I threw on the minus 40% adrenaline consumed by Shadow of Nyx's ability. Now, like I said, if you have that 14% crit chance at full health or 60% crit damage at full health, I would highly recommend putting one or the other. Like I said again, I would recommend putting on more crit chance, especially due to the fact that this build in general doesn't have high crit chance on its base stats, or any crit chance at all, or crit damage. It's going to make it a lot harder to use, or a lot harder to use crit damages. Now, with the stats, you have 46.2% damage with daggers, and then 33% crit chance while full health, 235% crit damage while full health. So the crit damage is pretty good already, but the crit chance itself is very low. 33% is what you could basically get with base stats if you were to max out your crit chance, your base crit chance. So having that 33% is very, very, very low. Now, if you were to add the 14% crit chance on the legs and the waist, you would be around maybe, I'm just going to throw a random number, I'm not doing the math in my head, but about 65% or something crit chance. And then where this build really shines, though, is the 210% poison damage, 32-second poison duration, and 210% poison buildup. And you also get 21% adrenaline per hit, 24% adrenaline per crit, and then 30% adrenaline on assassination kill. Now, where would I rate this legendary set? I would honestly put it on number 5 out of 5. To me, it is not at all near the best assassin build. it's nice with the elemental effect. It's nice to apply poison to multiple enemies and then let their armor pretty much become weakened. But the fact that you don't have any of the base stats as crit chance or crit damage is what makes it a lot harder, especially if you do not have the 14% crit chance on full health for the engrave, so that you can slot it on. Like myself, I don't have those engraves, so this set itself was not that great for me. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and go on to the next set, which these two sets that I'm going to be talking about are going to be only purchasable through the Helix store. And now we are back with the same weapons, with the Epic Bow, Dionysos' Tears, and the Epic Daggers. Now for this set itself, it looks really cool. I'm not gonna lie, I think the way I have my character actually dressed up makes this outfit look 10 times more badass. But the set itself is a little questionable. Now, this set is definitely one of the top 3, but actually this set would probably be put on number 3. It wouldn't even be number 2 or 1. I don't think this set at all is close to being number 1 or 2. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at the stats. So you have 19% damage with daggers, 21% damage with daggers, or 19% assassin damage, 21% damage with daggers. Then I threw on the 35% crit damage, 19% assassin damage, 30% adrenaline per crit, 7% crit chance, 19% assassin damage, 35% adrenaline on assassination kill, and 35% crit damage is what I threw on the engrave. Assassin damage, crit chance, 7%, 5% crit chance, and 25% crit damage while full health. If you don't have that, like I said before, 14% crit chance at full health, or 35% crit damage, or 60% crit damage full health. And then the assassin damage is at 19%, 28% movement speed while crouching, which would have been nice, but it's not that great, honestly. I think it would have been better if it had 35% crit damage, or 60% crit damage at full health, or the 14% crit chance at full health. I did throw on that 40% adrenaline consumed by Shadow of Nyx's ability as well. You can either use that, or you can use the intoxicated one, the 10% intoxicated damage and weakening effect. You can use either or. But if you have the 14% increase in crit chance at full health, I would highly recommend putting that. In the Celestial Suit set, you also gain 50% of an adrenaline segment with assassin abilities as well, which is nice, because it basically means you're like getting double the amount of adrenaline when it comes to assassin abilities only. So your rush assassination and critical assassinations and the, what is it called, Hero Strike and Vanish, and just some other abilities as well. I think there's only like one other ability, the Call to Arms, I think. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the stats. So 322% assassin damage, 67.2% damage to daggers, 47% crit chance while full health, 270% crit damage while full health. Now, like I said, if you have those two engraves, if you have the crit chance at full health on both the legs and the waist, you can potentially hit around 50, like 54% to 60%, 60 something percent crit chance. Or you can put one on, so crit chance at full health on the boots, crit damage on full health on the waist, so that way you can get into about 320% crit damage on full health or something like that, over 300% crit damage, and then you'll be over 50% crit chance at full health. And then for the utility, I'm at 0% adrenaline per hit, 84% crit chance, or adrenaline on critical hit, and then 65% adrenaline on assassination kill. So like I said, I would only put this as number 3 because it is better than in my opinion, it's stronger than the Pilgrim set. And it is definitely better than the Viper set or the Snake set. But it's not as great as the Pirate set at all. Like, the Pirate set in general just does a lot more damage. And then the last set that I'm going to be showing you is going to take number 2. It's very, very, very close with number 1. And this set is going to be the Dionysus set. And I know I'm not saying that name right. I'm sorry. But you know what? It is what it is. So the set, like I said, this is definitely one of the strongest legendary sets for assassin builds. It's right on par with the pirate set. Now you're going to go ahead and look at the headpiece. You get assassin damage, 21% damage with daggers, and then I threw on 35% crit damage. The gloves, it has assassin damage, 35% crit damage, a 7% crit chance is what I threw on the gloves. And then the torso, assassin damage, 35% damage, crit damage, and then I put on 14% warrior damage, so that way I have more melee damage just in general. And then the waist has assassin damage, crit chance, or 60% crit damage while full health, and it would have been a lot. I think, well, if you have the Numian line set, it's definitely better to put that on. But if you had the crit chance at full health, I think it would be also really smart to put that on instead, because that's basically triple the amount of the crit chance that you're getting with the Numian line set. And you're only getting 25% extra crit damage while full health when you already have that 60%. So I think the 14% crit chance at full health would have been the better option. If not, you also do have the 7% crit chance at full health and the 35%, I mean not at full health, but just base crit damage, and then you have the 35% crit damage. And then for the legs, you have assassin damage, 60% crit damage while full health, and then I would right away throw on that 14% crit chance at full health if you can. If you can't, 10% intoxicated damage and weakening effect, or the 40% reduction, adrenaline reduction for Shadow of Nyx is also a great choice. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the stats. You're at 322% assassin damage and 160% warrior damage now, rather than being in the 140s. And then 67.2% damage daggers, 40% crit chance while full health, 425% crit damage while full health, plus you also do get 100% crit damage with assassin abilities, making it even stronger. You're like sitting at 525% crit damage at full health with that. And like I said, if you can get that extra 60% or 14% crit chance while full health, that's 54% right there. And then another one on the waist, you're sitting at 68% crit chance at full health, which would technically make this build, I think, stronger. It would generally make it stronger than the pirate set, actually. So I'm just gonna flip it. The pirate set is number 2. This one is number 1, just because of the fact that this has higher crit damage than the pirate set by 100%. But the pirate set has more crit chance than this by 35% with what I have, with what I'm working with. But like I said, if you can apply the full health crit chance at full health, the pirate set is only going to be higher in crit chance by about, I want to say, what, 7%. And then for the utility, you're at 54% adrenaline per crit and 30% adrenaline on assassination kill. So the adrenaline gain with the pirate set and the Dionysus set is pretty much the same. Damage with daggers, this one has higher by 21%, and then warrior damage, this one's also higher. So this set actually is generally stronger. Now, if you use, it's a little hard to compare the two, but I do believe this set is actually stronger though. Now I'm going to also show you the gameplay clip for this set, and then after the clip I'm going to just kind of go over why I think each set is in their certain places. So now that you guys have watched the overview or review on the legendary sets and the, what is it called, the little clips I have on them for clearing out forts and whatnot, I'm going to kind of talk about why I'm placing these sets in certain orders. So the reason why I threw number 5 as the Viper set is because, like I said, the crit chance, even with a full health crit chance on full health, I mean, it's still not strong enough due to the fact that its crit damage is very low, and it's just, I don't think it's that great of an assassin build. Now, if the poison damage was able to strip enemy's armor extremely, like a lot, or poison damage was to increase your crit chance or crit damage or something, I think that would have been even better. That would have definitely put it up to number 3 or 4. And then the reason why number 4, which is the Pilgrim Set, why that is number 4, is because other than the fact that it has a high utility of adrenaline gain and the fact that it can go invisible for an unlimited amount of times as long as you're out of combat, aside from that, the gear set itself is not that great overall. It's not that great of damage wise. It doesn't assassinate enemies in one shot all the time, and because of the fact that your crit chance is going to be fairly low and your crit damage is also going to be pretty low, unless you're using critical assassination, which critical assassination will do a lot of damage, and then you can also get your adrenaline back pretty easily. So that's why I also decided to put that on number 4, because it is slightly better than the snake set. And then for the third one, with the, what is it called, the celestial set, it got third place because it is better than the other two, the first two, but the damage on it is just nowhere near as strong as the top two. The top two is just miles ahead in damage, but the fact that it basically has like doubled the amount of adrenaline gain, as well as having some crit chance, some crit damage, and some dagger damage, making it kind of a very well balanced set, is what's also really nice. And then for the number 2, I'm just going to say number 1 and 2, because like I said, these two builds are very, very, very close, very powerful, and one of them you can earn in game, the other one you can just straight up buy. So I'm just going to say number 2 for me is actually the pirate set. So pirate set is no longer number 1, pirate set is number 2. But it is very, very, very close with number 1. The reason why it took number 2 and not number 1 is just because of the fact that the crit damage is 100% less than number 1's. Now, crit chance, it is the highest crit chance that I've seen for pretty much almost any legendary set. There are a few legendary sets that can also reach 70% and higher, but the fact that pirate set can reach that, as well as having 300% crit damage as well, is really nice. And you know, it's just also the dagger damage is what kind of dropped the damage as well, because of the fact that the Dionysus's helmet gives you 21% dagger damage, making that extra damage for just straight up melee damage or melee combat or in combatness, whatever, it's gonna do more damage. And the reason why number 1 has number 1 is because it's powerful in all aspects. All you have to do is just throw on that 14% crit chance on your waist, and then on the boots as well, and you're gonna be almost at 70% crit chance, being very close to that pirate set, as well as having higher crit damage, higher dagger with damage, and higher warrior damage, and the same amount of assassin damage as well, with the same amount of adrenaline gain, which is why I think this set is the best set for assassins. Now, if you don't want to purchase it, you don't need to worry, get that pirate set, because the pirate set is still a very top tier legendary set. Now, that is pretty much it with this build video, or not build video, it's kind of a build video, but assassin legendary overview video. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I know this was a very long video. I didn't want to make it very long. I wanted to make it in depth and really compare each and every single one, so that way you guys will know why I chose what to be what, rather than telling you which set is number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like. And if you also want to see more videos, go ahead and hit that sub. And if you have any questions or concerns or any suggestions that you'd like to see any other type of videos, throw that down in the comment section as well. And I will be sure to try my best to make more videos that you're suggesting. That's pretty much it. This is all day, anything one on the PS4. Have a good day, good night, and peace.